Well, hello everybody. How excited I am to be here. I'm Steffi from The Makers. You know all about me maybe already because we were here many years ago in 21. I think it was needle felting for you already. And here I am again showing you one of my favorite makes, which is, of course, a little needle felted Tomte. I've got lots to say about these. We're a little bit Tomte crazy here at The Makers. You can wear him as a brooch, or you can make a beautiful little decoration, a Christmas tree hanging. Maybe he sits on the shelves. You can see all the little red hats popping up everywhere here in the background. Like I said, we're a little bit Tomte crazy. So you should maybe have a kit in front of you, but if you don't, just watch and chill. I've got my cuppa ready here. Nice cup of coffee this morning. And the only thing that you will need if you have got our little kit here, you will need a pair of scissors. That's all. And that is just so that we can make sure we are separating the curls nicely when we are attaching them to our Tomte for a beard. So first of all, if you've never needle felted before, let's have a little bit of a talk about that. You will be using a specialist needle, and you find this in the kit. There's a little brown envelope. Excuse me. Little brown envelope. If you open this up, you have a felting needle in there. In fact, you have two just in case one doesn't make it. I hope the camera can zoom in. I'm not sure it will, but the felting needle has got a very sharp end. It's actually probably better that far away. If you stab this into yourself, just a word of warning, it does hurt. So be careful. I also need to tell you that needle felting we recommend from the age of 10 plus. There is no upper limit. It's you who is obviously in charge if you want to have younger children needle felting, but any child should be supervised. And please make sure that these needles are kept safe. So don't leave them lying around so they get into the wrong hands. Sometimes they get knocked off the table and then end up sticking into something that they shouldn't. So make sure you keep them safe. But if you do run your finger across the working part of the needle, so along the working part of the needle, from the very sharp end to the slightly thicker rounded end, you should feel a serration. It's almost like a roughness, like somebody's been scraping on it. And if you imagine that's the shaft of the needle like this, and there are little indentations in that needle shaft, and as you stab the needle into the wool, it's the only time you're allowed to stab in crafting terms something. The little notches on that needle pull the wool fibers down. Now you have to understand what a wool fiber looks like. If you have a microscope and you look at one underneath it, I doubt that many of you will do, so take my word for it. Each little wool fiber has got little barbs sticking out, and when you push them together, because you're forcing the needle through these fibers, they get caught up on those notches. They do this. They hold on to each other like dear life because that's what they love doing. And you will potentially have had an exposure to accidental felting in your life before, because if you've put something in the hot wash accidentally, that's maybe your woolen jumper or one sock in, one sock out, a hat. I've done it all. It comes out several sizes too small and it feels really matted and solid. And that's exactly what we're doing with needle felting. We are solidifying the wool. It becomes smaller and it becomes quite hard and you can't just fluff it up again. So we obviously are using a felting needle, which is also referred to as dry felting. But if you are accidentally have done this in your washing machine, you know what I'm talking about. Usually you're then desperately trying to find out if there is a member of the family who can wear the much shrunk garment. So the way that I'm going to do this today, I'm going to pull this across so that you can see exactly in front of you what I'm actually doing. So there's the kit. I'm going to take the contents out now. You've got some lovely, lovely curls there. You've got some red wool and a little bit of pink for his nose. And then you've got some ominous looking wool mats, and I'll talk about those as well. And let's learn to needle felt. How about this? Let's just have a little go at needle felting, especially if you have never done it before. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take one needle, keep the other one safe in the envelope. We're only working with one needle at a time. And then you have these 2 wool mats. One of them has got a label on it. You can take this off because all it tells you on there is that these wool mats are actually made from recycled wool. We're a sustainable company and we're working with a natural product. This is all 100% wool, ethically sourced. And if you've seen needle felting before, you might have seen plastic mats or foam mats or anything plastic anyway. We ditched them a few years ago because we much prefer using an environmentally sustainable product made from recycled wool, fully compostable in your home compost. So if you in the future don't want them anymore, they last you many projects, you can literally just put them in your home compost, or better still, throw them in your garden. And in the spring, the birds will pick them apart and build lovely cozy nests out of it. Also, did you know that wool is a slug deterrent? So if you want to keep the slugs out of your vegetable bed or your flower bed, just buy lots of our kits, put them all around your flower bed, and the slugs hate slithering over woolly surfaces. So, but we're here to needle felt, not to talk about slugs. So I'm just going to show you how you're going to start with just getting practice of stabbing this needle into wool. So you have to hold on to the needle quite high up because that is the most robust part of the needle. And if you hold on to this tight, you're not going to break the needle. If you hold on to the part down here, you might accidentally snap the needle. It does happen occasionally, which is why we've put 2 needles in. If you do snap a needle, make sure that you dispose of it safely, especially find 2 parts of it if you can. That would be really good to find all the parts of the needle. And then all you're going to do is you're going up and down. Hear that crunch, crunch, crunch? It's my favorite noise. This crunching is the needle doing its work. It's pulling the wool fibers through the mats and it's tangling them up. And I want you to get the full experience of the crunch, crunch, crunch by stabbing quite hard into the mat, even to hit the table or whatever you're needle felting on below. Don't have it on your lap. Have a nice sturdy surface so you can stab into it. Notice what I'm doing. I'm going up and down in a straight line. When I teach workshops, which I do to hundreds and hundreds of people, I always say, imagine you are the sewing machine. And this is your sewing machine needle. And it goes up and down like a little sewing machine needle would. So you're the sewing machine and you're operating that needle. So I'm just going to show you what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to do this because that's not needle felting. That's plucking. That's something else. Don't keep your hand at a comfortable position so that you can come from above. I don't want you to knit. We're not knitting. You're not crocheting. You are stabbing. That's the thing what you're doing. You're stabbing. So keep stabbing away at those 2 mats. Everybody do it together. And what you will find is if you go from corner to corner, draw a circle on it, write your name on it, whatever you want to with that felting needle, then you might find that the 2 wool mats are now fused together. And they are, I mean, you can still pull them apart, but you can probably see how the fibers have sunk into the mat below. So you've learned to needle felt. If you've never done this before and all you've done is stab this mat, you've learned to needle felt. Not only this, you've also learned how to fuse 2 items together. So this is as simple as it goes. We're literally just stabbing that needle, and now I'm going to try and help you build your confidence in how you can advance that skill into something that might end up looking like that. Super easy, super quick. Now, I also should say it's a very special moment to see a gnome being born. It doesn't happen very often. And you may have heard me refer to them as Tomte. Now, I have to give you a little bit of the story. If you continue stabbing away, that's fine, but don't look at the screen whilst I'm talking because you need to keep your eye on the needle. The little Tomte is actually a Scandinavian character, and they treat them really, really well at Christmas. So on Christmas Day, they put a bowl of hot porridge outside for them. with a blob of butter. That's even better to pacify the Tomte, because the Tomte is in charge of your household and your small holding or whatever, wherever you live, for the rest of the year, and you don't want him to play any mischief on you. So our Tomte needs to be looked after on Christmas Day with a bowl of steaming hot porridge, and there won't be any misfortune happening in your house for a whole year. Beware if you forget it. You find there are little things happening in and around the house that just don't feel right. You know, when one thing after another happens and you think, oh, the rot is in. That's probably because you didn't feed your Tomte. Right, just by the by. So you have a lot of wool. My guess is you can probably make more than 2 Tomte, but just for the argument, split your wool in 2. Now, the wool that you're looking at right now is a red New Zealand merino. Here comes a bit of an educational bit. New Zealand merino is quite a coarse, short fiber, and it's perfect for 3D needle felting, especially when it has been turned into a bat. And this bat is spelled B-A-T-T. It's got nothing to do with the flying bats. We do not take wool from bats. This is all from sheep. But it so happens that these sheep were bred, raised, and fed and exposed to climate in New Zealand. There are many, many other merino sheep all around the world, and all of their wool is different. So some of you will be familiar with Australian merino, with a really long, fine fiber, make a super soft garment if you wear it. And some of you are less familiar maybe with the Cape merino. It is a really super short fiber. We use it mostly for surface covering on needle felted items. You can't make a solid shape with it. So a word of warning, don't get tempted to buy a cheap needle felting kit. It's not worth it. There are an awful lot of them out and about at the moment, because I think businesses have clued onto it that people want to try needle felting but don't want to commit spending a lot of money. If you buy cheap, you get cheap. There's no doubt around it. Buy from people who know what they're doing. I've needle felted for over 20 years. There's nothing in my shop that I sell that I don't use on a daily basis. To put it in a better way, everything in on our website is what I use every day myself, and I have a story to tell about it. So trust that you buy from a reputable business rather than wasting, even if it's not very much money, on a cheap kit. And you think you can't needle felt, but it's never you. It's just the materials don't match the needles are rubbish, the material is rubbish, often it's not even wool. Let's not even talk about the instructions. So I've got 2 halves of my wool here, and now I'm going to split my half into 1/3 and 2/3. So I've got a slightly smaller amount here that fits twice into this amount, and a slightly larger amount. And now I'm going to put this to one side. The other half is for my second Tomte. And what you need to do now is we're going to build a very simple shape. But when you sometimes look at the wool, it comes apart, and this is quite natural. So don't worry too much about it. Let the wool come apart, but identify your largest part. And you want that largest part, you want to shape that roughly into the size of your hand. So just shape it so that you've got a flat sheet. Don't leave little bits stuck in it. If they come off, take them off. Don't leave them on there. But just get that one shape that you identified as the largest to fit your hand. And then you're going to make the other parts fit the biggest part by laying them on top. So just lay them on top, spread them out on top. So you have a little pile of wool all fitting on top of that large part. So this is the nice smooth bit, and on top of it are all the little bits and pieces. And now you're going to fold, show you this from this side, you're going to fold in one longer side in towards the middle. So do this again. So you're folding this in towards the middle. This is the long part still. And then you begin winding this shape up from one end to the other, so that you're making a sausage basically. But on one side, the sausage looks a little bit like a snail because you've folded that wool in. On the other side, it looks really fluffy. So shall we do this again? So you've got your sheet of wool. There it is. This is all the bits on top. And I'm lying it down so that I'm facing the short end and the long end is going towards you. And now I'm going to fold the side in so it goes towards the middle, not all the way, just towards the middle. And then I start winding my little patch of wool in from one end to the other. And when you get all the way, let all these wispy fibers, fold them over the main shape. This is when you need to bring your felting mat back up. And you're going to stop just into these wispy fibers that you are allowing to smooth around the shape to close the shape up. Quite shallow little stabs, maybe about 10. And you're only doing this so that you close your shape up. So what you still have is you have one end that looks a little bit like a swirly whirly snail because that's where you folded the shape in. And this is the other end that looks much more fluffy and hasn't got any pattern really. So in effect, this will be your Tomte. Doesn't stand flat yet, but this is the Tomte. So the swirly bit that we folded in is the more solid base, and the wispy bit here is going to be the hat. So all we need to do now is keep the felting mat there. We need to shape it. Now, what I'm always referring to when you get your head around needle felting, because it is such a strange concept. Why would this weird needle suddenly reduce everything and make it look a certain way? But to get your head around this felting needle and how to use it, imagine this was a lump of clay. And if I said to you, right, you need to flatten the base so this is now standing straight, you would probably do this, right? Flatten it, do this, just in that one area where I'm touching it now. This is the swirly whirly part. This is exactly what you're doing next. You're sitting your gnome on its head, and then you're going to stab into that swirly whirly part to flatten it even more. And you can actually almost make a little indentation, because if there is an indentation, it stands even better. Now, as you're stabbing in there, can you see how that becomes slightly hollow? You are shrinking the wool back. Remember, wherever you stab the needle is where the reduction takes place and where you're firming up your shape. And it will become a solid base. So you're actually making your gnome a little bit shorter, gnome or Tomte. So when I turn this round now, it's standing. Yay! So it's still very soft, but it's standing. And now we need to make the opposite end slightly long. So it's still very soft, and we've got to do a lot of work on this. But I'm now going to lie it on its side, and I'm going to felt along here. Remember the clay analogy. If this was clay and I told you make it pointy, you'd be doing this. Now where my fingers, the line of my fingers is where we stab the needle. So it's almost like in a star shape, ending up here at the tip of the hat. So I'm going in small increments all the way to the top of the hat. Then I turn it slightly and I stab. Now, if you're stabbing your shape onto your mat, this is completely normal. Just tease it off very gently, turn it, stab it. And at the tip of the hat with a few more stabs, because that is where we want to reduce the shape the most. Turn it. Now, if at any point you find that bits of wool are coming off, don't fight them. Take them off. We can attach more later on again. There are so many ways of adjusting needle felting and correcting and adding more and felting it down more. It is a constant, I often refer to it, it's like a dance. You never stay in one space or one spot. You always move around it from one area to another. So remember to stab your needle straight in, straight out, coming from the top. Hold onto the thicker part nice and firmly. Keep your fingers out of the way so that you don't end up with getting punctured by that needle. It is quite vicious. And just get the wool felted down. And before you realize, you've got, it looks almost like a little hat. So this part now is been shaped into a tip. I've got my flat bit still. He's still standing. And now I've got to firm him up a little bit around the middle because this is very soft still. So I'm now going to stab my needle all around the rest of the shape, always turning him in very small increments. If you don't turn, you will flatten your Tomte and he will just be, I don't know, he could be a fridge magnet instead. Anything's possible with needle felting. Now, one of the questions that get asked regularly is, how do you know when it's finished? And I'm actually going to join you here. I've got my Facebook page at the ready. I will join you just in case there are some questions that are coming up, because I want to hear what you guys have to say. So I've muted myself and I will just look at some of the comments. It's always nice to hear from people. So let's see what everybody is saying, or maybe some familiar names will pop up. Some of our makers followers as well. So let's let you can do a little bit of stabbing while I'm chatting. Okay. So we've got people joining from all around the UK. Somebody from Doncaster. Somebody else from Doncaster. I drove past there yesterday. I was in Harrogate actually. So driving back from the Knitting and Stitching show in Harrogate all the way and going past Doncaster. And I used to not live too far away from Doncaster, actually. I lived in Grimsby, for those who know. We've got Patsy and Irene, and it's so nice to see names come up. There are many comments, but Facebook is choosing to only show me a few. And that's okay. I'll keep an eye on it. But if you do have any particular questions to needle felting, then do let me know, because I'm very happy to answer anything that might pop up and needs answering straight away. So let's keep stabbing away a little bit more. So coming back to the question, when will you know that it's finished? Well, there is no right or wrong. Often people like it when it's just holds together. But there are also people who felt it so rock solid that you don't know where it's coming from. I know where it's coming from, because it's a very easy explained reason why some of you felt solid and some of you felt very softly. And it's got all to do with how far you sink your needle into the wool. Remember, this is the working part of the needle, literally just that bit where there are notches in the needle. That's the only bit that does anything. And if you only ever stab that very superficially into your make, all you're felting is the surface, and the core, so the inside, stays soft. If you are, however, stabbing this right into the middle, look how much I am making a dent into him. So there's no right or wrong. The only thing that will happen is that the ones who are stabbing harder will end up with a smaller shape, and those of you who stab a little bit less hard into the shape will end up with a slightly bigger shape, because you're not shrinking it down so much. The other thing that always happens with needle felting is that you work on one part and you think, this looks perfect. And then you work on another part and you think, the first part doesn't look perfect anymore. Remember what I said about needle felting? It's a back and forth all the time. So I thought that he had a really nice shape, but now the base feels quite soft. So I'm actually going to felt into the base again. So don't ever feel disheartened, because you have the opportunity, if I put that in a positive way, to constantly go over parts again. And it's never really finished until the very, very end. So I'm still shaping my little Tomte. I'm choosing not to stab too deep, because I have more opportunity to keep an even shape rather than stabbing really hard into it. And there's no need. Little tip here, you don't always have to stab in at a right angle. You can also stab into your shape at a shallow angle. So imagine you have a really tall shape. Sometimes it does happen, and you want to bring it down. But if you stab into this end, you're just making a bigger hollow. And if you stab into here, you're just making him taller. So if you want to bring the shape down a little bit, hold onto the tip of the hat and just go at a shallow angle downward. So you are felting the shape still, but you're also squishing him in the direction that you're actually stabbing. And that's another tip. As long as you go in and out in the into the wool in a straight line, it doesn't matter whether you come from a different angle. Here's another tip to keep your fingers safe. Make sure that you are adjusting the shape on your mat rather than in position terms, rather than your hand. It's quite funny because I see it happening in workshops all the time. You think people go like this and then like this and like this and like this. You don't need to do this. Your hand is the part that's the least flexible because it's attached to your arm and your arm is attached to your shoulder. I'm not telling you anything new. But this bit is the flexible one. This can be posed in any direction and in any position on your mat. So make sure that when you want to stab here, you don't do that. You actually just turn your shape. And that keeps your fingers safe, and you've got way more control over the needle if you do that than constantly twisting your hand out of shape. Keep your hand safe, keep your fingers safe, and just move the shape around. That's the flexible part. I'm sorry if this is patronizing if you're already an expert needle felter, but we all have to start somewhere, and this is a definitely useful tip. So we've got I do see some familiar names here now. So I'm sure this is Heather. Oh, hi Heather. Heather and Dorcas watching. Oh, nice. 2 of you together. Oh, I love that when you get together and you have a little felting party. Lots of new names that I have never heard before, but then why should I know everybody? Some people from Newcastle, Nottingham. It's always nice to see where people are actually coming from to come together for this. We have somebody in Exeter. I hope you're all safe because of the recent storm. But we told him last night he should just disappear because it was quite hideous driving conditions coming from Harrogate. But I hope that you're all safe and warm, and if not, I hope that you are getting help very quickly to get back to normality. Right, so I'm going to keep this as it is for now because a lot more work will be done, and I'm going to put this to one side. Now I'm going to take my pink wool. This is for the nose. There's an almighty lot of pink wool, so I'm going to split it in half first off so that I have something for my second Tomte. And the first bit, if you ever want to know how small this could potentially be, just roll it into a really tight little ball and squish it. And then if you squish it so hard that there's no air in, tightly, that is how small it can become if you just keep stabbing it. So your Tomte can have quite a big nose, which this is going to be for his nose. Just have to undo it all. And exactly what I've just done and what you've done earlier, we're going to wind this into a ball shape. Now, it's always really quite hard to make a ball. Things always turn out to be a sausage first. So the way to do this is that, again, if you've got wispy bits coming off, overlay them, and then you wind this up. If I keep winding this right now, I'm going to end up with a really long shape here. So instead of winding it just from one end, I'm also tucking the sides in. So I'm folding the sides in to make that shape smaller. And then I keep going. And I'm actually trying to wind this in really tightly. Sometimes you have to sort of go slightly, instead of just going straight, you put it slightly to the side and wind it. And then the wool gets put over all parts of the shape that you're trying to wind in. You will still not end up with a ball. You will probably end up with an egg shape. Now, the last wispy fibers here, these are the ones that I'm stabbing into the shape. Be mindful of your fingers because this is a much smaller shape now. And felt into it. So I've just secured it right this very minute. So I've got a little ball here. And now I'm going to work a little bit more on it, but be careful with your fingers. Here is a useful tip. And this is something that people have told me. They actually pin their shape down with one needle and they stab it with the other. You can get finger protectors if you have if you are notoriously stabbing yourself, but you can actually pin it down with one needle and then stab it with the other. So you need to move this around and then make sure you don't hit one needle with the other. That they don't like that very much at all. So pin it down and then stab it with the other needle to keep your fingers safe. And if you're happy to just hold it with your fingers, wherever you stab the needle, this is another useful tip. Imagine the line of your needle and you're holding onto your shape. Where does that needle go? It needs to always end up in the mat. So stab so that the needle, if you overshoot your target, always ends up in the mat. So what you don't want is you don't want to hold on to this and now stab, because this is going, the line of the needle is going straight into my finger. So make sure that you always imagine that the needle, if it goes further, ends up in the mat. My mat just slipped away, but I missed my finger. I pulled away in time. Here we go. So I've got a relatively firm shape here. And now I'm going to plonk this right into the middle of my cone shape. It looks absolutely too big, but don't worry, it's all good. And to fasten this on, remember how you felted the two mats together. You actually stab from one mat to the other. You're going to do something very similar, but instead of going straight into the nose, you're only stabbing at the edge. So you're catching little wispy fibers off the pink shape, and you're pushing that straight into the red shape. And you're going to do this all around. So you're stabbing into the pink shape and then push the pink fibers into the red. And if you need to reduce the size of that nose, then edge your way slowly up the nose and stuff more of the pink fibers into your red shape. The reason why we're doing this is because if you do it this way, you are not flattening the nose. It stays nice and round. So, you guys from the virtual village hall, you're so active. You're saying hello to everybody. That's amazing. I love that. We have so many people here. It's actually really lovely to know that you're all watching. And of course, this stays on Facebook. And potentially, I'm not entirely sure, does it go onto YouTube as well? I'm sure that you know this much better than I do, because you're probably regulars here. Fiona says we won the kits. Oh, perfect. And I hope they have arrived in time. I was very conscious of sending it out to you. So hopefully you can make along with the kit that you won. We've got Carol. If that's the Carol I know, then hello, Carol. Lots of love. In sunny Ferndown. Some of you are joining late, but that's okay. Susan Wales flooded yesterday, but okay today. Oh, well, I hope that it will only improve. The sun is shining in most places now, so the rain hopefully has stopped. So that's it. It's nice to see you on screen again, says Joanne. I thoroughly enjoyed watching your tutorials on a completely different channel that I look up felting. It's so therapeutic. Thank you very much. Let's talk about therapeutic needle felting. So I'm a great believer that often we talk about mindful crafting, and I totally get it, but I'm quite literal sometimes. And I think needle felting is actually quite mindless, because when you needle felt, you hardly think of anything other than, I don't know, listening to the crunch, 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 and just getting on with it. And I really think sometimes we just need to empty our minds out entirely of anything and just keep our hands busy. And I think because you're concentrating so much on shaping, and because things happen quickly with needle felting, you don't have time to think about anything. You literally just get on with it and do it. So it is a very mindful or therapeutic craft. Right, curls. So I've got a very strange looking shape here. Needle felting items never look straight away how you want them to look. They look sometimes quite bizarre, often like something else entirely, even sometimes something that you don't want to say what it looks like. But we are going to get on with it. And I have got some very lush curls here. Now with curls, these are made by sheep. We haven't done anything to them. In fact, the ones that I'm holding, I don't know which ones you have got. These are actually some mohair curls. Would you believe it? They come from goats, not from sheep. You might have different type of curls. We have some beautiful little Blueface Leicester curls. You can actually get them in dark colors as well, in gray and brown. You don't have to use curls if you're doing this with your own supplies. You can use a longer, what is called a wool top. So there are strands of wool rather than the wool bats. There's all kinds of things that you can do. So curls are notorious for, if you pull them, they frizz up, just like real hair. If you brush curls, you end up looking like this. So we don't want to pull the curls to separate them. So for this is the reason why you need your scissors. So first of all, split your stash of curls into half, just roughly, so that you have enough for later. And then if need be, cut your curls rather than pulling them. Tease them, cut them. So don't pull them and pull that beautiful curl out. And you need to sort of sort them out a little bit. Each of your tomte will look completely different because that's the nature of needle felting to start with. But also curls are definitely slightly different for everybody. Now, sometimes curls, you look like this is not an awful lot, but curls can be made twice or even 3 times the size if you are actually just teasing them ever so slightly widthways. So you're opening them up. So rather than having one tight curl, you've got a whole lovely, lofty curtain of curls. And now you're going to felt these onto your tomte, starting under the nose. And you just stab into one end of the curls. You can shorten them by felting them down a little bit more. But if you've got really long curls, you can also either cut them in half or fold them in half and have a double layer straight away. And then you're going to work your way up to the side of the nose. So you want to go quite high, only because we need to, when we put another layer on there later to make the gnome's hat or the tomte's hat, we don't want to see the join of the curls. They're going to be tucked away. We won't see it. And then you go around the other side. I'm going to cut these. Remember to tease them sideways to make them bigger. And then felt that side on as well. And you can go over it again. This is by no means all completely finished yet. He looks a little bit like this now. I'm just going to add a little bit more here to the front where it looks like he's got a slight gap where something else could go in. And felt it down. It's as easy as that. Who would have thought? That's how you fasten the curls on, just like you've done everything else. Felt them onto him and arrange them. Keep them off his front, so we don't want to felt them down. They need to be falling down his front. And then if you've got spare curls and you only want to make 2 tomte, then by all means go round the back of his head to give him a slightly shorter hairdo going around the back. So curls can definitely be folded in half. But if you want to make more than 2 tomte, you might be able to actually just make smaller versions. So needle felting can be scaled up and down quite easily. Just use less materials, and then you just continue doing what you're doing. There's no mathematical calculation required. Not like in some other crafts, if you want to upscale a dress, you do need to work it out. And the same with knitting. If you suddenly want to make something bigger and you have to increase the stitches, you can't just some of you can just do it. But most of us need to work out how it all fits together. With needle felting, that is not the case, because you do a lot as you go along, and by just halving the materials will already make your shape much smaller. Right, so let's finish off the back. You don't need to do the back. This is an added bit that I've just put on there. And of course, what we've got now is we seem to have a Tomte, but it looks a little bit weird because we can see that his curls are attached to his hat. We can see the full nose. What we really want is we want that lovely little look where the hat looks like it's slouching over his nose and he can't see because it's way too big. And that is where your 1/3 of your half that you split off at the beginning comes in. So it's always good to have a little bit of extra wool anyway. And I'm going to split my 1/3 into half. So I've actually got some spare left. And this time you need to spread it out a little bit. So the length of this needs to be big enough so it fits around his head comfortably. And then you're going to, so this is about what, 3 fingers width. 3 fingers width of wool. And as long as it needs to be to fit around him comfortably, not tight, comfortably. With a bit spare is better. Now this sheet, you're going to fold in half. This is definitely a total half fold rather than what we did before where we've just folded one bit into the center. Show you again, you're folding this in half. Now you have a slightly rounder edge where the fold is and wispy edges where they come together. And this rounded fold, you're going to place on top of his nose like this. And then you're going all the way around the back and you're closing this up at the back. So he looks a little bit like you've just pulled wool over his eyes. There, like that. And I'm holding it close at the back and my felted hat pokes out. And now you're going to just felt halfway up from that wrap that you've done into the hat, into the existing hat. Don't go anywhere near the edge yet. We want the edge to stay loose all the way around, front and back. But what you are doing is you're felting the rest of the wool down on his hat. So stay away from the edge, and I want to say probably by at least 1 centimeter, if not more. And you're just continuing to felt the wool down to mirror the shape that's underneath it. So the gnome had a hat before and you're just adding more to it. This is a great opportunity to cover up any unsightful bits that might have been there. So remember, you're working your way towards the tip of the hat, felt that down. We will work some more on this, but just for now, just get it to fit. The wool needs to fit back onto the hat, but we now have a really soft and unfelted edge. And before we get to the next bit, make sure that this is still slouched over his nose like this. Now you need to turn him upside down. I'll try and show you this as best as I can. You need to turn him upside down, and you're now going to stab with your needle into the space between the nose and the hat. In many ways, the best way to explain it is you are felting a seam into the hat. So you're almost felting the wool not onto the nose, but you're felting the edge of the hat back into itself so that you are turning that edge of the hat. You're turning it in a little bit more and you're creating a very neat edge. So that can also mean that you've got to pull that hat down a little bit again. Don't be afraid. You can be quite rough with him. And then you're going to felt closer to the edge. You never really felt into the edge from the outside because we don't want to fuse the hat onto him. We just want to, or we don't want to fuse the edge of the hat onto him. We are fusing the hat onto him. And you just follow the contour of the shape. So I'm trying to do this that you can see it from the front. I'm felting it at the back as well. So this is how close I'm getting to the edge, but I'm not really felting right into the edge because I want the edge to be still a separate shape from the rest of my Tomte. And another question that often pops up is people will say, there are little pock marks or there are little stab marks in my shape. Yes, there are. So bear with me. There are different size needles for starters. At the moment, you're just using a medium felting needle. It's a good all-rounder starter needle, But if it really bothers you, you can actually go down. This is a 38 gauge needle. It's measured according to the wire gauge. All of our needles are marked. So this one is orange. We have a wealth of needles. I think we have 15 different types of needles, not just different sizes, but also different shapes. But you can get a 40 gauge. So the higher the number, the smaller, the finer the needle. You can even get a 42 gauge, and you can get a coarser needle, which is a 36. But if you want this to be super smooth, you can actually invest in some finer needles and keep felting it down, and the hole that you're leaving obviously will be smaller. Another tip is that instead of felting straight into it, do it at a shallow angle. It just makes the stab mark appear a bit smaller. Plus, the other thing you can do is sometimes you just rub it with your hands, and actually it smooths it over. So before you realize, you've got a little Tomte there who looks all pretty on your felting mat with his little red hat. And of course, nothing's ever finished until you decide it's finished. So if you think you need to give him more of a beard, you can still do it. If you think you need to flatten him at the base, you can still do it. If you think you need to extend him because you've got a bit of red wool, you can still do it. You can attach wool to his base to make him taller. You can wrap wool around him to make him broader. There's nothing ever finished. So say you wanted to make his base broader because it's skinny and he keeps falling over. You can just use some of the leftover wool, which is still from our first half. So it's always good to have a bit spare. And you can just wrap it around him, tuck the beard out of the way so you don't wrap the beard up, and wrap it around him like this, and then felt it into place. And suddenly you've got a much, much taller Tomte once it's felted down. If you just need to make the base broader, then make it slimmer and wrap it around, just around the base. If you just want to make him taller, just add an extension and then cover the join up. It's endless opportunities to make the Tomte exactly how you want him. But the main thing is, if this is your first project, or maybe you're a beginner and you've just dabbled at it a little bit, cut yourself some slack, because we are all starting somewhere. And if your first project doesn't look perfect, everything is perfect. Everything. We are all perfect because we are who we are. And if you want to improve your skills, that's another thing. Then work on something new. But don't ever tell your Tomte he's not perfect. Imagine. Close your ears, little Tomte. Nobody means it. You are perfect. And I often also think that when you needle felt or when you craft, whatever you're making, it's in the making. That is where the value lies. You're having a good time needle felting. That is where your richness is. That is where you've put something into your wellness bank account. If you end up with something that you love, that's your bonus. That is something that you must never expect. But it's nice when it happens, and it will happen more often. Practice makes the master. And at the same time, we are sometimes our worst own enemies. So be kind to yourself and appreciate that you have made something all by yourself, especially if this is your first time. And there may be other types of needle felting that you prefer. There's lots of things that you can needle felt where it's pictures. We're all different. Some of us just don't get on with the 3D shaping. Some of us find pictures a lot harder. Find the thing that you really love. Have a look at our website. We have actually got a little bit of an early bird offer going on just before the big weekend. You know, I don't like to say it. Our weekend is always called Rainbow Friday and Fiber Monday, because who likes the color black? Nobody does. So let's have a little bit of a spending spree if you feel up for it. We're certainly here for you, and you can bagsy a nice little deal as well. Have a look at our website. But in the meantime, if you need anything else, I am so active on our own Facebook page. You've seen the link there. Find us, The Makers. Our Facebook handle is actually themakers.co.uk. Even though that sounds like a web address, it's also our Facebook handle. We're on Instagram as well, where we're just The Makers. Remember the double S at the end. And I really, really hope you've enjoyed this. I'm just going to have a quick check-in at some of the comments, just in case I've missed something. Sorry, catching up. I can't talk and read at the same time. So my surname is Stern, which is actually the German word for star. There we go. That one. It's just unfortunate that it means other things in this country, but I am a star, so always been, always will be. Fiona says they're having fun. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here on a Monday morning, especially. You know, most people can't even get out of bed at this time of the day, and you're here watching. Excellent, unless you're in bed, of course. I starting by making a snowman, says Joanne, and then finally made characters from more famous characters for her granddaughter. That's how I started. Not with my grandchildren, I haven't got any yet, but with my own children. I started needle felting for and with my children. Though I will just give you a word of warning. None of our kits are toys, nor will the finished item ever be a toy. They are only for decoration. So make sure that you keep that separate. Nikki says, totally love this. I'm going to have a go. Thank you so much. Sue says thank you. Claire says thank you. Lots of you are saying thank you. Well, I am the one to thank you. And thank you very much for the Virtual Village Hall for allowing me to bring this wonderful craft to you all again. It is my passion. I love it. Like I say, I've done it for over 20 years. And I'm hoping that if I've only infected one of you with this wonderful craft, then it's made my day. So take care, everybody. Keep safe, keep warm, and keep stabbing that needle into wool, and you'll have lots of fun. Bye, everybody.